After exploring the recent history of El Salvador in the first part of our extraordinary walk through everyday life in El Salvador after Bukele's arrival, where we analyzed who Bukele is and studied his war against the gangs, as well as how all of this affects the population, and after hearing real testimonies, in this second part, we will continue to analyze the opinions of experts, international organizations, and discuss the Terrorism Confinement Center and its actual operation, figures, and results. We will also re-examine how these new aspects affect the country's residents and look at some economic data, as well as the use of cryptocurrencies in El Salvador's economic system. Join us in this exceptional second part of our extraordinary walk through everyday life in El Salvador after Bukele's arrival. Experts from the United Nations expressed the following in an article published on the UN website on May 22, 2023.
1 year after the state of emergency was declared, 67,000 people had been detained, many of them arbitrarily. We call for the immediate repeal of the measure and for a review of the broad powers granted to address gang violence. While the government has an obligation to protect citizens from such heinous acts, it cannot trample on the right to a fair trial in the name of public security. The prolonged state of emergency, along with legislation allowing increased surveillance, broader prosecution, and swifter determination of guilt and sentencing, carries the risk of massive violations of the right to a fair trial.
This demonstrates their clear disagreement with the actions of the Salvadoran state security forces regarding their current security policy. According to UN rapporteurs, although El Salvador has reduced rates of criminal violence in recent years, it is still a country where the rights of many citizens are violated, but from a different perspective than in previous administrations. This has turned the country into a fertile ground for the polarization of its population. On one hand, there are those who have seen in this new approach to justice an opportunity to reclaim aspects and spaces of their daily lives that had been taken away from them for many years due to the actions of criminal gangs. On the other hand, there is a segment of the population that has been affected by the implementation of the new government policies. According to the latest statistics provided by Bukele's government, more than 60% of the country's population has expressed feeling better with the implementation of the plan to combat gangs and terrorism. This, according to the government, demonstrates the effectiveness of their administration, especially when these data are contrasted with the reduction in violent death rates that the country has experienced in recent months. The reality is that since the implementation of this new policy, Bukele's government has unofficially detained around 68,000 people, but approximately 5,000 of them have been released as judges have determined that they have no association with gangs. However, the government has only provided information up to a certain point, as it has not published detailed statistics on crimes like homicides since April 2022 and has declared that this information will be kept confidential for 7 years. Therefore, at present, it is not known for certain how many people have died or the details of these cases. So far, according to the World Prison Brief Organization, the country has the highest incarceration rate in the world, with more than 600 prisoners per 100,000 inhabitants. This has generated a sense of relative security compared to the lives Salvadorans lived years ago in many cities and towns of the country. However, it is also a reality that the cost of reclaiming many of these spaces that were previously under the control of gangs has been paid by innocent people as well. Another fact that has further exacerbated this issue is the creation of the Terrorism Confinement Center, which is the largest prison in the entire region and one of the largest in the world. This space is designed to accommodate 40,000 people and was constructed in February 2022. So far, the press has not had access to this prison, which is located 74 kilometers from the capital, San Salvador, and whose construction involved the eviction of hundreds of people from the region. According to the government, this prison will be guarded by over 600 armed forces personnel and 250 from the National Civil Police. Inmates sleep on iron sheets without mattresses and have only 2 sinks and 2 toilets for cells with over 100 prisoners. In addition to this, the infrastructure is equipped with state-of-the-art technology, scanner and X-ray systems, as well as several containment walls at different levels both internally and externally. It also has 7 surveillance towers located around the perimeter, each with 7 guards who monitor the prisoners 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For the construction of this center, the government acquired 236 acres of land, equivalent to 7 times the size of the largest football stadium in the country. Independent electrical and potable water supply systems have been established to supply the entire complex. The security agents who will work in the center have state-of-the-art weaponry and complete protective gear. Additionally, support teams have been stationed a few kilometers away, equipped with a variety of vehicles, including helicopters, to support prison officials if necessary. For the inmates, various vocational training rooms have been set up, including sewing, carpentry, and blacksmithing, with the intention of promoting activities that allow them to contribute to society. In total, the prison covers 5,400 square meters divided into 8 modules, not including isolation and punishment areas, which are separate cells without electric lighting or windows, only a sink. Currently, the government has reported that there are over 3,000 inmates inside the prison, but it is expected that in the coming months, thousands more will be transferred from different parts of the country with the intention of reaching the prison's maximum capacity of 40,000 inmates. Amnesty International expressed its concerns about the human rights situation and security in El Salvador during the administration of Nayib Bukele in a public letter revealed in February 2022. In the letter, the organization highlighted that at the beginning of his tenure, Bukele had promised to implement a comprehensive public security strategy with a focus on respecting human rights. He had also committed to collaborating with Amnesty International to address security-related challenges in the country. However, according to Amnesty International, over the course of his time in office, Bukele and his administration did not fulfill this initial commitment. Instead, they took actions that, according to the organization, violated human rights and weakened the rule of law in El Salvador. The letter also pointed to a sudden increase in the homicide rate in the country, which raised significant concerns. Amnesty International called for urgent measures to protect the lives and integrity of individuals in the face of criminality. They urged authorities to implement effective measures to address security but also emphasized the importance of these actions being proportionate, necessary, and in line with the international legal obligations that El Salvador had accepted. Despite these concerns and criticisms, Bukele's popularity remains very high in the country. According to Marvin Romero, there is a collective social relief due to the decrease in insecurity in communities. There has been a break from the perception of the impossibility of accessing various public spaces and communities in San Salvador that had historically been under the control of gangs. The government reports that the homicide rate decreased by 57% in 2022 compared to the rate in 2021. However, many people question the practices of the state security forces to achieve these results, and criticisms of Bukele's management do not seem to have a significant impact on his approach to combating crime. In terms of the economy, it's important to note that in El Salvador, the official currency is the United States dollar. However, in an unprecedented move in the region, the president announced in 2021 that Bitcoin would be used as legal tender alongside the dollar in the country. This policy raised concerns from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who argued that the implementation of these measures could pose a series of economic, financial, and legal problems for the nation. Despite these concerns, the president decided to proceed with his idea, and many citizens started using cryptocurrency in their transactions. It's worth noting that as of September 2023, the value of one Bitcoin is $26,000. According to a recent report from the World Bank, El Salvador's economy grew by 10.3% in 2021, following an 8.2% decline in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, growth moderated to 2.8% in 2022, and it is expected to reach an average of 2.3% by the end of 2023. In the medium term, GDP is expected to converge at 2.1%, above historical averages, driven by private consumption, public investment, and tourism. However, by April 2023, El Salvador faces the need to advance reforms to ensure fiscal sustainability. The response to the COVID-19 crisis represented around 15% of GDP, according to the World Bank, and, along with low revenues and rigid expenditures, has led to a public debt exceeding 90% of GDP. The minimum wage in El Salvador has increased by 20% compared to the previous year and currently stands at $365 per month. However, this places the country's residents in an average to low range in terms of their ability to cover their basic needs, especially considering that the value of the basic basket, according to data from the Office of Statistics and Censuses, is $250.80 in urban areas and $188.90 in rural areas for the current year. Life in El Salvador after the arrival of Nayib Bukele to the presidency has been, to put it mildly, very tumultuous. Currently, the country is immersed in many processes of structural change with the goal of improving stability in all aspects, especially in terms of citizen security. However, the struggle for the re-establishment of peace seems to be a path that still has a long way to go for the residents of this small region of the world. We recommend that if you haven't already, continue expanding your knowledge with the first part of our extraordinary walk. It's been a pleasure having you as a companion. If you've enjoyed our video, please feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. See you on the next extraordinary walk.